The math prodigy. The midday sun cast warm streaks of light across the linoleum floors of Riverside Middle School. In room 3002, Mrs. Amanda Thompson stood at the front, her sharp eyes scanning the classroom as students settled into their seats for 8th grade math. Her tailored blazer and precise posture conveyed authority, and her reputation for high expectations preceded her. At the back of the room near the window sat Jamal Carter, a 13-year-old black boy whose quiet demeanor allowed him to fade into the background. While his classmates chatted and shuffled papers, Jamal's attention drifted to the trees swaying outside. His brown eyes, intelligent but distant, rarely engaged with the classroom activities around him. Mrs. Thompson began returning the most recent math tests, her comments brief and pointed. "Decent work," she'd say to some students. "You need to study more," to others. When she reached Jamal's desk, she hesitated. His paper displayed a perfect score, a bright red 100% circled at the top. Not for the first time, she noted the disconnect between his excellent performance and his apparent lack of interest. She handed him the test without comment, lips pressed into a thin line as she returned to the front. "All right, listen up," Mrs. Thompson announced, silencing the room. "Most of you did okay on this test, but many of you are still struggling with concepts we've been covering for weeks. This is basic algebra, people. You'll need to understand this if you want to succeed in high school, college, or anywhere else in life." As she spoke, her gaze landed on Jamal, who had already retreated into his own world, chin resting on his palm as he stared out the window. Irritation flickered across her face. "Jamal Carter," she snapped. Jamal jolted upright, heat rushing to his cheeks as every head turned toward him. "Yes, ma'am," he mumbled. "You seem very interested in what's going on outside," Mrs. Thompson said, nodding toward the window. "Care to share what's so fascinating?" Jamal opened his mouth but quickly shut it again, unsure how to respond. A few muffled chuckles rippled through the classroom. "Let's see if you've been paying attention," Mrs. Thompson continued, her tone sharp. "Come up here." The room fell silent as Jamal stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. He made his way to the front, painfully aware of the whispers following him. "She's going to roast him," one student muttered. "He never talks. He doesn't even know what's going on," another added with a laugh. At the whiteboard, Mrs. Thompson uncapped a marker and wrote an equation, complex, with multiple variables, exponents, and fractions. It was well beyond what they'd covered in class, deliberately chosen to challenge him. "Go ahead," she said, holding out the marker. "Show us what you've got." Jamal took the marker, his palms sweaty against the plastic. He stared at the equation, heart pounding in his chest. For a moment, he considered giving up, handing back the marker and accepting the humiliation. But something stopped him. Behind the classroom noise and beneath his quiet exterior lived a mind that craved mathematical challenges. His notebook margins were filled with complex equations he'd worked through for fun, a private passion he'd never shared. Taking a deep breath, Jamal raised the marker to the board and began to write. His first strokes were tentative but grew more confident with each step. The classroom, expecting failure, watched in growing silence. "Wait, is he actually doing it?" a girl whispered. "Looks like it," her friend replied, leaning forward for a better view. Jamal worked methodically, breaking down the equation into manageable pieces. His mind raced ahead, seeing patterns and pathways through the problem. The squeak of the marker against the whiteboard was the only sound as he moved with increasing speed and confidence, dismantling the complex equation step by step. Behind him, Mrs. Thompson's expression shifted from skepticism to astonishment. She stepped closer, carefully following his work, checking each step. The solution was not only correct but elegant, showing a deep understanding of mathematical principles well beyond grade level. When Jamal finished, He capped the marker and turned to face the class. The room was completely silent. Disbelief and awe registered on his classmates' faces, even those who had been laughing moments before. Mrs. Thompson studied the board, tracing each line of work with her finger before turning to him. "This is correct," she said, her voice unusually quiet. The silence broke with a few tentative claps, building into full applause. Jamal stood awkwardly at the front, unused to attention, especially positive attention. His cheeks burned, but this time not from embarrassment, from an unfamiliar sense of pride. "What you just saw wasn't luck," Mrs. Thompson addressed the class, gesturing to the board. "This is what happens when someone truly understands mathematics. Jamal didn't just solve this problem, he broke it down systematically and made it look easy. That's real comprehension." She turned to Jamal, her tone softer than he'd ever heard it. "Why haven't you spoken up before? If you can do this kind of work, why sit quietly in the back?" Jamal looked down at his sneakers. How could he explain the comfort of invisibility, the fear of standing out? After a moment, he shrugged. "I didn't think anyone would notice," he said quietly. Mrs. Thompson's expression softened further. "Well, it's time for that to change." As Jamal returned to his seat, the classroom felt different. Students who had never acknowledged him before watched him with new eyes. The whispers had transformed from mockery to amazement. "How did you do that?" asked a girl who sat in front of him, turning around with wide eyes. "I just figured it out," Jamal replied hesitantly. "That was insane," another student added. "Are you like a genius or something?" Jamal shook his head quickly. "No, I just like math." When the bell rang, Mrs. Thompson asked Jamal to stay behind. As the classroom emptied, she leaned against her desk, studying him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Jamal," she began, her tone gentler than he'd ever heard it, "I owe you an apology." He blinked in surprise. "An apology?" "I've been teaching for 15 years, and I like to think I know my students. But with you—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I misjudged you. I assumed your quietness meant disinterest. I thought your lack of participation meant you didn't care. I was wrong." Jamal shifted uncomfortably. "It's okay," he mumbled. "No, it's not," Mrs. Thompson insisted. "You have a gift, Jamal, and I don't want to see you hide it anymore. Do you realize how rare it is for someone your age to solve a problem like that? To think the way you do?" Jamal traced the edge of his notebook with his finger. "I don't know. I just like doing it. Math makes sense to me." "That's exactly what makes it special," she said. "You see patterns and connections that others miss. That's something to celebrate, not conceal. There are programs, competitions, advanced courses that could challenge you, help you grow. I'd be happy to help you find them if you're interested." The idea both thrilled and terrified Jamal. The thought of stepping outside the comfortable shadows into something new made his heart race. "What if I mess up?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Thompson smiled. "Messing up is part of learning, but if you never try, you'll never discover what you're truly capable of." That evening, Jamal sat at the kitchen table in his family's modest home, recounting the day's events to his parents. His mother's eyes glistened with pride as she reached across to squeeze his hand. "Jamal, we've always known you were special. I'm so glad others are starting to see it too." His father nodded, his deep voice steady. "This is just the beginning, son. Don't be afraid to show the world what you can do." Later, alone in his room, Jamal opened his notebook to a fresh page. For years it had been his private sanctuary, a place for the equations and problems that challenged and delighted him. Now it represented something more: possibility. He began to write, not just equations this time, but ideas, goals, questions about his future. For the first time, Jamal felt ready to be seen, to explore what his talent might mean. The next morning, walking into room 3002 felt like entering a different world. Students who had barely acknowledged his existence now greeted him with smiles and nods. Some even called out to him. "Yo, Jamal," a boy from the back row said. "That was amazing yesterday. How'd you do it?" Jamal's instinct was to shrink from the attention, but something new pushed back against that familiar urge. "I just worked through it," he answered, sliding into his seat. "That wasn't just working through it," a girl countered. "You made it look easy. You're like some kind of math wizard." Throughout the day, students approached him, some asking for help with homework, others simply curious about him. The quiet boy who had blended into the background was suddenly visible. It was uncomfortable, but not entirely unpleasant. During the next math class, Mrs. Thompson's demeanor had subtly shifted. Her explanation of the day's lesson remained thorough, but her tone carried less edge. When she called on Jamal to answer a question, there was encouragement rather than challenge in her voice. After class, she asked him to stay again. This time, she had news. "I've been making some calls," she told him, sitting on the edge of her desk. "There's an advanced mathematics program at the district level, twice a week after school. It's designed for students who need more challenge than the standard curriculum provides. I've spoken with the coordinator, and they'd be thrilled to have you join." Jamal's heart raced. "Do you really think I'm good enough for that?" Mrs. Thompson smiled. "You've already proven you are. This is a chance to explore your potential, to see just how far you can go." The following week, Jamal attended his first session of the advanced math class. Walking into the room filled him with the same nervous anticipation he'd felt at the whiteboard. Students from different schools around the district sat in small clusters, talking animatedly about concepts Jamal had only explored on his own. As the lesson progressed, he found himself challenged in ways his regular class never had. The problems were complex, the discussions fast-paced and vibrant. For the first time, he was surrounded by peers who shared his passion for numbers and patterns. When he offered a solution to one particularly difficult problem, the other students nodded with respect rather than surprise. Here, his ability wasn't anomalous, it was valued. Back at Riverside Middle, Jamal's transformation continued. His participation in class increased gradually, his hand raising more often to answer questions. Mrs. Thompson began to rely on him not just for answers, but for alternative approaches to problems, sometimes asking, "Jamal, can you show us another way to think about this?" His classmates, too, began to see him differently. The boy who had once been nearly invisible became the math kid, someone they turned to not just for homework help, but as a respected peer. His quiet confidence grew, not in dramatic leaps, but in small, steady steps. Mrs. Thompson also changed. Jamal's hidden talent had reminded her of an essential truth. Potential doesn't always announce itself loudly. She began paying more attention to her quieter students, looking beyond surface behavior for signs of untapped ability. One evening, several weeks later, Jamal sat at the kitchen table wrestling with a challenging problem from his advanced class. His mother came in and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm so proud of you," she said simply. "You've always been special. And now, the world is starting to see it too." Jamal smiled up at her before returning to his work. As his pencil moved across the page, he felt a new sense of purpose. The equations were no longer just private puzzles. They were stepping stones, leading somewhere he was now eager to explore. In the months that followed, Jamal continued to grow both academically and personally. The district program connected him with mentors who recognized his exceptional talent. One of them, Dr. Marcus Chen, a mathematics professor at the local community college, took particular interest in Jamal's development. "Mathematics is a language," Dr. Chen told him during one of their sessions. "And you, Jamal, seem to have been born speaking it fluently. But like any language, it becomes more powerful the more you practice, the more you engage with others who speak it. Under Dr. Chen's guidance, Jamal began preparing for mathematics competitions. The first few contests were nerve-wracking. The pressure of time problems, the unfamiliar settings, the feeling of being evaluated. But with each competition, his confidence grew. By spring, he had placed in several regional events and qualified for state-level competition. Mrs. Thompson beamed with pride when he shared the news. "I knew you had it in you," she said, "but even I didn't realize just how far you could go." His classmates celebrated his successes too. The same students who had once whispered and laughed now bragged about knowing him. "He's in my math class," they'd say, when his name appeared in the school newsletter. "He's been like this all year." At home, Jamal's parents created a special space for him to study, converting a corner of the living room into a small work area with a desk, good lighting, and shelves for the growing collection of mathematics books he was acquiring. His father, who worked long hours as a mechanic, would often sit with him in the evenings, not understanding the advanced mathematics but appreciating his son's passion. "You know," his father said one night, "when I was your age, I was good with engines. Could hear a car drive by and tell you what was wrong with it just from the sound. But nobody at school ever noticed or cared. I'm glad they see what you can do, son." As eighth grade neared its end, Mrs. Thompson called Jamal in for another conversation. This time, she wasn't alone. Mr. Patterson, the high school mathematics department chair, sat beside her. "Jamal," Mrs. Thompson began, "Mr. Patterson is here to talk about your options for next year. Based on your work in the advanced program and your competition results, we think you're ready for something beyond the standard ninth grade curriculum." Mr. Patterson nodded. "We'd like to place you directly into our honors pre-calculus class. It's typically for juniors, but in your case, we think it's appropriate. And if you continue to excel, there may be opportunities for dual enrollment courses at the community college in your sophomore year." Jamal tried to process what they were saying. "You mean, skip 2 years of math?" "The years don't matter," Mr. Patterson explained. "What matters is finding the right level of challenge for your abilities. And from what I've seen and heard, you're ready for this." That night, Jamal shared the news with his parents, who responded with a mixture of pride and careful concern. "Are you sure you want this?" his mother asked. "It sounds wonderful, but it will be challenging, being so much younger than the other students." Jamal considered her question seriously. 6 months ago, he would have recoiled from the very idea, preferring invisibility to standing out so dramatically. But something had changed. He had changed. "I'm sure," he said finally. "I want to see how far I can go." On the last day of 8th grade, Jamal lingered in room 3002 after the final bell. Most students had rushed out, eager for summer freedom, but he wanted a moment to reflect on everything that had happened in this space. How one afternoon at the whiteboard had altered the course of his life. Mrs. Thompson looked up from her desk as he approached. "Something on your mind, Jamal?" "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his voice stronger and more confident than it had been that first day at the board. "For seeing something in me, for not letting me hide." Mrs. Thompson smiled, setting down her pen. "You know, Jamal, in teaching, we have these moments that remind us why we chose this profession. Watching you discover your potential, that's been one of those moments for me." She paused, studying him. "But remember, I didn't give you your talent. I just created an opportunity for you to show it. You're the one who stepped up to that board and solved the equation. You're the one who decided to stop hiding." Jamal nodded, understanding the truth in her words. "Still, I might never have tried if you hadn't called me out that day." "Sometimes we all need a push," she agreed. "But where you go from here, that's entirely up to you. And I, for one, can't wait to see it." As Jamal walked home that afternoon, backpack light without textbooks but mind full of possibilities, he felt a sense of quiet certainty. The path ahead would have challenges, advanced classes, new environments, higher expectations. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid to face them. The boy who had once found safety in being overlooked now understood the power of being seen, of stepping forward with his gifts. Mathematics had always made sense to him, had always provided a world of elegant patterns and satisfying solutions. Now it was offering something more, a future, bright with potential, waiting to be solved one equation at a time. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.